How are you? So this is Daniel Zendi. Today we're going to have an international look on why Australia has the most adult millionaires per capita. This is the photo of today. It's me in Australia, in Tasmania, with a kangaroo. Thought it would be cool to show you guys. But yeah, is Australia actually one of the wealthiest countries in the world? And this would indicate that yes, this is the average wealth per adult and the median wealth per adult. You can see that Australia actually ranks among the top 5 on both. Australia is number 5 for average wealth and number 2 for median wealth, which is really impressive. Some countries like the US and Switzerland, they're high on average, but not that high on median. And some countries like New Zealand, they're high on median, but not that high on averages. Whereas Australia and Luxembourg, pretty much, they're high on both, which is really, really good. So what is Australia doing right, and why are Aussies on average so wealthy? Well, first of all, Australia has been rich for a while. This is a medicine project. It just calculates and estimates past GDP per capita. If you look at 1913, it's kind of hard to look, but Australia is actually number 2 countries in the world for wealth. It was above the UK only slightly, and above Canada, Belgium, the Netherlands, Argentina, Germany, France, etc. So Australia has been wealthy for a while, at least for like 120 to 150 years. And being rich for a long time really helps you build wealth because, well, more people being rich means more wealth was built and more wealth was inherited. Obviously, if your parents and your grandparents were rich, then you're more likely to be rich as well because you have what you produce and you also eventually inherit what they produce. So that's one reason why Australia might be rich, is just, well, it's been rich for a while and that kind of builds up. The second reason is Aussies, at least especially when compared to the US, they have like relatively low debt. And that's like across everything. So they have a lower personal debt, they have a lower student loan debt, and they have a lower credit card debt. For credit cards, it's just, I think Australia doesn't have as much of a consumer culture as the US does. The US is truly like unique with regards to that. Australia, I think, is more consumer focused than Europe, for example. In Europe, a lot of Europeans you talk to, they don't even know what a credit card is. They've never had a credit card. In America, it's unthinkable of like not having a credit card is unthinkable. And in Australia, I think a lot of people have credit cards, but it's not as massive of a thing as the US. And obviously, people who do own credit cards do tend to spend more, and they do tend to end up in debt sometimes. And well, the average person in the US has $6,500 US dollars in credit card debt, whereas the average in Australia has only 35 Australian dollars, which is significantly less when you compare it to US dollars. Also, the Australian HEC system, it has lower interest than the US system, and school or university in Australia is just generally cheaper. So well, it makes a lot of difference if you're 30 and you either didn't have to pay for education, or you paid less, and you're not in stupid credit card debt, then probably your net worth is going to be higher than your counterpart that does use a credit card often, does have credit card debt, and does have a very, very stiff student loan because not only of interest, but also of how much tuition actually costs. So yeah. Another thing is youth employment comparison. So Australia is actually really good at employing their youth. I've lived in Australia and I've met a lot of Aussies, not only in Australia, but also everywhere, because, well, Aussies are everywhere. They really like to travel, and they have a work culture from an early age. If you ask an Australian when it was the first time they had a job, or at what age they started working, they'll probably say 14, 15, or 16. For a lot of Europeans, they start a little later, maybe at 16, maybe at 18. And a lot of cultures, especially in Latin America and developing countries, if you're from the middle class, you don't even work. You know, it's like maybe you start working after uni, maybe you start working when you're like 19, 20. In Australia, it's very ingrained in their culture that, you know, you kind of get a part-time job, maybe you're a lifeguard, maybe you work at a bakery, maybe you're a waiter or something, and it starts really young, like around 14, 15. And obviously, well, if you have low unemployment, and if you start working from an early age, then again, you have more time to save. Obviously, if you start working at 15, you're probably going to have more money saved up at 25 than if you start working at 21. It's just how math works. You work for longer, you save more money, you end up with more money. So that could also be one reason why Aussies are pretty well off. And obviously, another point to that is Australia has a really high minimum wage. It's the highest minimum wage in the world, and it's lower for people were like 15, 16. If you're underage, you have a lower minimum wage, but it's still a pretty good wage. And well, if you have the highest minimum wage in the world, that means that even people who are working very basic, low-level jobs, they get to keep a bit more of their own money because they're making more for every hour that they work. So another thing that people don't talk about a lot, and Aussies don't even know this, it's that Australia has actually low government spending. And that might sound crazy, but if you compare it to OECD countries, Australia is right here. So it's not the lowest one. There's a few other countries that are lower than it, but it's definitely much lower than, let's say, France, Italy, Austria, Greece, Germany, pretty much all of Europe. Australia does not spend, well, the Australian government does not spend that much money when compared to other developed countries. And when you consider public sector size, it's the same thing. Denmark is 32% of like the whole population or the whole employed population. Australia is like 20, so it's what, 50% increase. And even countries like Canada or Belgium or the UK, they have a higher or bigger, more inflated public sector than Australia. Now that does indicate that Aussies will pay on average less taxes, that government will spend less, and so again, money that the government isn't spending is money that is kept with the population, and the population can save and invest that. So that's also one possible reason why Aussies are on average pretty wealthy. And then, of course, there's the heart of the matter. You couldn't do a video about it without talking about it. Fundamentally, Aussies have a lot of money saved because they have a self-funded retirement system, which is very unique, very rare. A few countries now, they're following some recommendations by some institutions, let's say, and they're doing like a 3-pillar retirement plan, where one of the pillars is a self-funded retirement system, but the others aren't, or at least like kind of like the first pillar isn't, and then pillar number 2 and pillar number 3, they kind of are. But Australia, since the 90s, has just moved pretty much completely to a fully self-funded system, where if you pay whatever you pay, it's your money, and it's included in your net worth because it's money that you actually own in an account in your name. Imagine, like, let's say you're American or European, imagine all your social contributions that you've made since you started working. Imagine they were all in a bank account invested in stocks or bonds or whatever you wanted, instead of being just gone by the government. Imagine if you left the country, you could use it. Imagine if you wanted to buy a house, you could use it. Yeah, that's how Australia works, and that's why Aussies are on average so rich, because they actually have the money that they pay into Social Security. It isn't just gone, evaporated into a pay-as-you-go system. And so, obviously, I'm going to talk more about Australian retirement system later on, but it's just a really, really good system. It's money that you actually own, and it's definitely one of the bigger factors in why Australians are on average so rich. So Australia has implemented, that's my wrap up by the way, Australia has implemented a series of policies over time that have allowed its population to be one of the wealthiest on earth, and all countries, rich and poor, including Australia itself, and maybe especially Australia itself, would benefit from an appreciation of what got Aussie so far, because, well, a lot of Aussies, they don't even know they have it so good. And I think recognizing what got you there in the first place is like a very important step. But what do you think Australia is so wealthy? Why do you think Australians on average are so rich? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you guys around.